Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going deep inside the body to demystify what really happens in the seconds, days, and even years following a traumatic spinal cord injury. It's a cascade of events that is absolutely fascinating, and understanding it is key. So, before we can talk about an injury, we have to appreciate the marvel that is the spinal cord. And honestly, the best way to think about it is as the body's information superhighway. Every single command from your brain to move, every sensation of touch or temperature, it's all just data racing up and down this incredible neural pathway. So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the immediate shutdown that happens right after an injury. Then, we'll look at how doctors figure out the real damage. After that, we'll explore the unique patterns these injuries create. And finally, we'll cover a life-threatening complication that is a full-on medical red alert. Okay, let's dive right in. When that traumatic injury happens, the first thing that occurs isn't what most people think. It's not the paralysis you see in the movies. It's something much more immediate and global, a total system shutdown. This phenomenon has a name. It's called spinal shock. And what that means is that the entire nervous system below the point of injury just poof, goes silent. Poof, all the reflexes disappear. The muscles go completely limp, which is a state called flaccid paralysis. Now, this can last for days, sometimes weeks, and it creates this sort of fog of uncertainty because it completely masks what the permanent damage might actually be. So how in the world do doctors know when this temporary shock phase is ending? Well, they're not just guessing. They are looking for a very specific, very primitive reflex to come back online. It's called the bulbocavernosus reflex. The moment that reflex reappears, it's the first real sign that the spinal cord is starting to wake up, and it tells the medical team that the period of shock is officially over. Okay, so once that initial shock subsides, the real detective work can begin. The fog starts to lift, and now doctors can finally start to assemble a true picture of the long-term damage. And out of all the questions they have, there is one that stands above all the rest. Is the injury complete, or is it incomplete? To go back to our analogy, is the information superhighway totally severed, or are there still a few lanes of traffic getting through? The answer to that huge question actually comes down to a key clinical clue called sacral sparing. Doctors will meticulously check for any sensation or any voluntary muscle control in the lowest parts of the spinal cord. We're talking the S4 and S5 levels. If there is any function, any signal at all getting down there, it means the injury is incomplete. And that is a game changer because it dramatically improves a person's chances for recovery. Now, this isn't just a casual check. It gets formally graded using what's called the ASIA Impairment Scale, or AIS. An ASIA A grade means it's a complete injury. No signals are getting through. But anything from B to D means it's incomplete, with different levels of function still there. This scale is so important because it gives everyone, the doctors, the therapists, the patient, a clear, standardized language to talk about the injury and track recovery over time. Now, this is where it gets even more fascinating. If an injury is incomplete, the exact location of the damage inside the cord creates its own unique fingerprint of symptoms. This leads to several very distinct clinical syndromes. So, for instance, take anterior cord syndrome. If the damage is just to the front part of the cord, it takes out the pathways for motor control, pain, and temperature. But, and this is the key, the pathways in the back are fine. So the person might not be able to move their legs, but they can still feel you pressing on them. It's a very specific pattern. Okay, but what if the damage is right in the bullseye, in the center of the cord? Well, that causes central cord syndrome, which is actually the most common type. And because of the way the nerve fibers are organized, with the arm and hand fibers being more central, you get this really distinct pattern. The person's arms and hands are much weaker than their legs. And then you have what is, frankly, the most bizarre and interesting pattern of all, Brown-Sequard syndrome. This happens when exactly one half, the left or the right of the cord, is damaged. Now, because some nerve pathways cross to the other side of the body inside the cord, you get this incredible mix-up. You lose movement on the same side as the injury, but you lose pain and temperature sensation on the opposite side. Just wild. Okay, for our final section, we need to talk about one of the most dangerous, most life-threatening complications that can happen. And what's scary is, this can pop up months or even years after the initial injury. And this risk is almost exclusively for people with injuries at or above the T6 level of the spine. So why T6?
Well, because above that level, the injury severs the brain's main control lines to the autonomic nervous system. The system that automatically controls your blood pressure, your heart rate, all that background stuff. This condition is called autonomic dysreflexia. And let me be perfectly clear. This is a true medical emergency. We're talking about a massive, uncontrolled nervous system reaction that can cause a stroke, a seizure, or even death if it's not handled right away. So what happens is the body's autonomic system just goes haywire. It's in total chaos. Below the injury, the blood vessels clamp down hard, making the skin all pale and cool. But the brain senses this dangerously high blood pressure, and it tries to fight back. It sends signals to slow the heart way down and open up the blood vessels above the injury. This causes a pounding headache, flushing, and heavy sweating. The body is literally at war with itself. And here's the absolute kicker. This terrifying chain reaction is usually set off by something the person can't even feel. It's a simple, painful stimulus happening below the level of injury. The number one cause? A full bladder because of a blocked catheter. But it could be anything. A wrinkle in a sock, tight clothing, or a small pressure sore they didn't know was there.
Because it's such an emergency, the response has to be fast and methodical. First thing, sit the person straight up. Let gravity help lower their blood pressure. Second, immediately loosen or remove any tight clothes. And third, and this is the most critical part, you have to play detective and find the trigger. Check the catheter, check the bowels, check the skin. Find that source of irritation and get rid of it fast. When you look at this whole cascade from that initial shock to the detailed diagnosis and then these incredibly dangerous long-term complications, it just hammers home how critical and fragile the spinal cord really is. It leaves us facing the biggest question of all for the future of treatment. Where do we go from here? Will the next big breakthrough be in regenerating the nerves themselves, protecting them from damage in the first place, or maybe finding clever new ways to just bypass the injury altogether? The answer to that is going to change millions of lives.